Hello, everyone, and welcome to Amplified, the podcast where we explore how technology and artificial intelligence can amplify human potential. I'm your host, Ishaant Majumdar, a high school student fascinated by how AI is changing education, business, and the ways we solve complex problems. Today, I'm honored to be joined by Dr. Partha Mohapatra, a professor at Sacramento State University who teaches at the intersection of accounting, technology, and data analytics as a professor of accounting. Dr. Mohapatra's work focuses on accounting information systems, data analytics, and managerial accounting. Thank you so much, Dr. Mohapatra, for joining me on Amplified.
Thank you so much, Isant. It is a lovely thing to propagate the information about our discipline to students, especially high school students, to let them know how exciting accounting as a profession is, and it's not as boring as generally people think out it to be. It's not just debits and credits. It's way exciting than just debits and credits.
Of course, this is a very multi-dimensional topic, and a lot of students in high school, just like the ones listening right now, probably don't understand, the intricacies of this. And I want to understand how, what drew you to teaching this field, what drew you to teaching this discipline.
Started my career after MBA in finance, which included accounting in India, and I did a dual major in MBA in financial finance, accounting, and information systems, and then I joined PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is an accounting firm. And even though I was a consultant there, my work was more oriented towards accounting, in specifically towards purchases accounting. And so that's how I got more interested into accounting as a field. But then when I started thinking about my PhD, I realized is that accounting at its core is about information dissemination. It's all
Mm,
about how you are disseminating information in the in a very qualitative way, in a very what you call in a very correct way, or
precise.
and precise way. And obviously, we say that the trial balance has to be balancing to the penny, and so it has to be very accurate. and
Yeah, of
and and,
course.
and so the dissemination of information is very important to the stakeholders, different stakeholders.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
because we do not realize in our society the role of accountants as in disseminators of accurate information,
Mm.
because the whole capital markets we talk about today, the Dow Jones index breaking all the records. But then how do people invest in in those stock markets? Your dad is having 401k. How do those agencies which are managing the 401k accounts for your parents, dad or mom,
Yeah.
how are they investing in stocks? If the information dissemination by accountants was not there, then
Hmm.
everyone would be in the dark, and the
Yeah.
capital markets would not exist. So, the very foundation of capital markets is accurate, correct information dissemination. And we are proud to be the ones who help in this accurate dissemination of information.
Mm.
So, when we are talking about information dissemination, it automatically then comes, what is the best way that we can accurately disseminate information, right? Since the days of Luca Pacioli, who is considered as the father of accounting, the
Father.
accountant's mandate hasn't changed. We provide reliable truth to all the stakeholders so they can make informed decisions. So this did not, the way we provided this information did not change for almost 500 years, because we used physical ledgers and so on. But then information technology came in the last 40, 50 years. And so there was a drastic change. We started using ERP systems, we using QuickBooks and so on. And now we are moving from those, now we can call them basic information technologies, to providing real-time high fidelity data. And so because of my background in engineering, and because of this thought process that accounting should be accountants should be basically concerned with accurate information dissemination, this actually drew me into teaching at the intersection of accounting and technology and data, because it basically allows me to fulfill Pacioli's origin vision that we should provide information accurately, transparently, and speedily, so that
Mm.
this information is available to the stakeholders at the right time for them to take the decisions. So we aren't changing what accounting is, but we are actually finally perfecting how it is delivered.
I want to ask, over the last few years, how have you seen AI change a lot of these basic information technologies in accounting and these businesses and that kind of thing?
So, in my last 25 years since I started my dissertation on accounting information systems, I've changed, I've seen the whole change happening because of the computerization. And then we saw how it moved to data analytics in the last
Hmm.
decade. And now, in the last 2 years, we are talking about AI. Specifically, in the last semester, I had to change my complete curriculum to make
I
sure
see.
my students are completely updated. So it has been quite a journey for me in this last 3 decades, if you may say. And so what we are doing is that we still, our accounting students have to know the basics of accounting. And that is true for any area that you are thinking about where you are going to use AI. If the doctors say that we are going to use AI, but we are not going to understand how to diagnose the patients, the AI is going to do it. That's not going to happen. The doctors still need to go through their medical education. The same
Hmm.
thing applies to accountants. The accountants have to know accounting, they have to know the basics of accounting. What we feel is that the AI is going to supplement the knowledge that they have in accounting,
Hmm.
and
I
it
see.
is going to expedite many of the processes in accounting, and it is
Hmm.
going to help the accountants to do their jobs better. I always tell this to my students, especially in the last 1 year, is that AI is not going to take away the jobs of accountants. Only what is going to happen is that AI enabled accountants, or AI accountants who know how to use AI, they are going to displace other accountants. Okay.
Hmm.
So we need to have a workforce of accountants who know accounting, but also
But are supplemented
should
by AI.
know how to use AI to their
Yeah,
benefit. All right. So
I
I'll give
can
you a
see.
basic example. We do reconciling of accounts. That's a very basic thing. And the students need to know the basics of reconciling different accounts. But then we are also teaching them different prompt engineering tools to make
Oh.
sure that they also know how to use AI as an agent to perform those reconciliations in seconds. But in the end, the student's job is also to verify the output. They cannot say that the AI did that mistake. They cannot afford to do that.
Of course, like a yeah.
Yes, you have. Yeah, tell me.
Of course, like a doctor, if they use an AI and they give the wrong medication, they can't say, "Oh, the AI gave the wrong
I
medication. It's
was
not my fault."
about to give you that same example, and thank you so much, because this is exactly the example that I give to my students. I say
Hmm.
that your role is no different from that of a doctor. If the doctor says that I gave a wrong medicine because of AI, it's not going to save him. Similarly, if an accounting fraud happens, and this happened recently, if you look at
Oh, this-
one of the big four got into trouble in Australia because they created a complete report based on some AI, and they submitted that report to the government. And later on, it was found that they had used the AI to create that report. And of course, there were too many hallucinations in those reports. And
yeah.
so the students must, and actually, it is easy for us to teach this, because in accounting we have a concept already in place called professional skepticism. Okay,
Hmm.
as an accountant, you have to be skeptical, especially as an auditor. So we bring the concept of professional skepticism to the students and let the students know how to spot hallucinations in different outputs that they are having. And
Hmm.
so that is one thing. And then you also would know that accountants, we are going to use agentic AI, or
Hmm.
agentic AI. In a few years back, we were more concerned about teaching robotic process automation. Okay, and
Robotic.
in auditing concepts, we called it audit process automation. Now now in the last few semesters, we are going beyond that, because
Hmm.
students now need to understand how to manage AI agents that can handle entire workflows. Okay, for example, suppose the students and the tax practitioners, they have to
Hmm.
understand the tax code. But now, apart from learning the tax code, they also need to learn how to use AI to research the tax code. Okay,
I see.
the students, I feel for the students, so to say, because now they have to learn accounting. There is no way that you, just like medical education, there is no way that you cannot learn the basics of accounting and then just go on to tell the AI to do everything for you. You do have to learn accounting, but once they have graduated, I think it is an exciting career for them now. They don't have to do many of the jobs which were very tedious and which were
Yeah.
very manual and which were like data entry thing. They don't have to do those kind of things, because now they have upgraded themselves to using AI. So that is
Okay.
the agentic AI also is a big part of this whole movement of using AI within accounting and auditing.
So, of course, what you're saying is that a lot of these very arduous tasks, data entry, these spreadsheets kind of thing, it's evolved, far beyond that,
Right.
basically.
Right.
And
And a lot of stuff that we were trying to do, like getting the data from the SAP environment and pulling
mhm,
into another system, and sometimes on Excel, and sometimes
mhm.
trying to create charts and other things. Now, all these things can be done much more efficiently. I used to say that You are using much more efficiently by using ERP system and all this IT information technologies instead of using your paper ledgers and everything. But now we have to now start comparing with what was information technology environment with the AI environment and with the Claude, the Anthropic Claude,
Yeah.
that is giving really good solutions for the enterprise. And that one can be deployed very well by accountants in extracting the information from the systems of the organization and then
Hmm.
extracting whatever you want and then analyzing it and doing whatever you want. Let me ask
Hmm.
you a simple question. You probably don't know much accounting, right?
No, no, very little.
Now suppose I tell you tomorrow to go and
Mhm.
do job A, B, C, and do some reconciliation and calculate the warranty expense and calculate goodwill impairment. Can you do it confidently without
No,
knowledge of
without,
accounting? Right?
no, I would not be able to. Mhm.
So that is where the accountant's role is going to be now. They
Hmm.
need to have people who are knowledgeable in accounting but should be able to use AI to
Hmm.
their benefit.
I see. I see. And you were speaking is how it's also helping a lot of these decision making
Mhm.
kind of issues. And it reminded me of something in like managerial accounting, right? It's fundamentally about decision making. So how does AI amplify budgeting, forecasting, and performance management specifically in these more decision making type roles?
Excuse me. So, whether it is managerial accounting or financial accounting,
Mm.
any information, any decision making is always should be an informed decision,
Hmm.
right? Decision
Yeah.
making is always about quality information that you have, right?
Hmm.
If you have information today that Amazon $200 billion capital expenditure, you have a very accurate information that the 200 billion expenditure that is going to be from Amazon in this year, it is going to be used properly, and it is you are having the information correctly or more accurately or with a 90% probability that you are accurate, that
Hmm.
200 billion is going to give very good results in the next 3 4 years. If you have that quality of information, you would purchase the stocks of Amazon instead of selling the stocks of Amazon.
Yeah.
I'm just giving you this example because Amazon stocks went down by 9% today because it announced that it is going to have $200 billion capital expenditure. Now,
Hmm.
people are selling off their stocks because they don't know what is going to happen with it's a huge expenditure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody had that in mind. They were expecting around 150 billion, which is itself a big number, but 200 billion is a huge expenditure.
Yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
know what is going to be the output of that expenditure. What I mean
Hmm.
to say is that if you had an good information, then you can use that for making a good decision. A good decision is based on good information or quality information, right? And managerial accounting, whether you are talking about budgeting or forecasting, is all about trying to give appropriate information, taking into
Hmm.
account a gamut of scenarios and data, and trying to give the best possible scenario with the good probability that this will happen. And that information, based on that information, decisions are made.
Hmm.
Now, AI helps in making these accurate predictions.
Yeah.
Previously, we were using regression models, we were using scenario analysis, and so many other ways. Now, using AI tools and machine learning tools, we can have analyze big data. If you know big data,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we can analyze big data and analyze structured and unstructured data, okay, and make appropriate forecasts,
Hmm.
and do from the forecast of sales we can go backward and do the projections to the production and go back to the inventory and so on. So that is all about managerial accounting. And so
Hmm.
that thing is going to become better and better when we start using AI tools on
Hmm.
all sources of data, including unstructured data. I will give you an example of unstructured data that people are using. Suppose you have I-17, I-17, and you are a manager and you are doing the forecasting for the the parts and materials that are needed to manufacture I-17. Okay, now you have used all kinds of forecasting analysis based on the sale of I-16s and all so on. But
Hmm.
now you can also use unstructured data, like what people are talking about
Hmm.
I-17 in Twitter, what they are
I
talking
see.
on Instagrams. You can analyze the videos, and you have unstructured data, which is almost 70% of the data, by the way. You can
Hmm.
analyze them using the new AI tools and then make a better prediction of what will be the sales of I-17. I'm not saying that it is going to be an accurate prediction, but it will be probably a better prediction that what you used to do only with structured data or
Hmm.
within the company data. Now you can
Yeah.
go out and explore all this data that is there outside the world and inside the company, and you can do a better forecasting of what is going to be the I-17 sales. And then you backtrack with your budgeting thing of how many you will manufacture and what will be your production and what will be the raw materials required to for that production. Does it make sense?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And of course, what you're talking about. What I think you're talking about is like sentiments analysis, right? Is you're taking, for example, Twitter data. Someone says, "Oh, I can't. I'm so excited to buy it," while
Right.
someone else says, "I'm not sure. I might hold off on the purchase this year." So
Absolutely.
you're collecting so much more data, and you're
Mm.
now much more accurately able to decipher what the general sentiments is. And the one thing
Put
I
it
think
into the
about is,
model and
yeah.
then tell the AI is going to make a better prediction based on the modeling that you do with both structured and unstructured data.
And of course, this itself, I assume, is somewhat recent, right, within the last couple of years. But maybe even looking forward, looking ahead 5 to 10 years, how do you see AI reshaping accounting education, and just everything around this field?
Yeah, I think like any other field, there is a huge change that is going to
Mhm.
take place in accounting education. But I think accounting as a discipline is more aligned with AI. Okay.
Mhm.
The big four like Ernst& Young, PwC, KPMG, and Deloitte. And
Yeah.
apart from other audit firms, accounting firms, they have invested heavily on AI. And so we already knew this is coming, and so we are more prepared for it, and our education has been revamped. For example, I have already started including things in my course in accounting data analytics, how to use AI in getting and preparing our students for the ethical issues in AI.
Mhm.
It is not just about using AI, but there may be some ethical issues. Also, teach the students about the black box problems in AI, right? So the explainability problem, and the regulators, for example, the Company Accounting Oversight Board, which was set up after the Sarbanes-Oxley Act came up in 2002. They basically inspect all the audit firms who are the auditors for publicly listed companies in US, and they mandate that the explainability features of AI. Okay, so whatever, if you are using AI, then it there should be some the models that you are using, they should be explainable. Is there any logic behind it? If it is not, then you use some other test just to supplement what you have done with AI. So the explainability part, we have to understand that that is something our students should learn. And then the students should also know about the algorithmic biases, right? So if the historical data used to train the system is already having some biases favoring certain types of regions or vendors, then that bias will come up with the AI, because AI is basically
Yeah.
being trained with
Mhm.
something, and already historical data has bias, then it will
Yeah.
so that's, and then we now have started using AI, especially generative AI, to draft the management discussion and analysis reports. That is a big component in the annual reports and quarterly reports. And the risk is that the AI might hallucinate a logical sounding explanation for a financial dip that isn't actually supported by the underlying data. So those kind of
Mhm.
hallucinations in financial narratives and other things, the students should be aware of. Okay, so apart from just learning how to use AI, our students should also know these components properly, so that they understand the use of AI, at the same time understand the risks of using AI. There should be a balance between these two.
And of course, thinking about things like privacy, about hallucination, bias, everything like that. And then, of course, for the new students, is there one idea or mindset about AI and accounting that you wish every student and every business leader understood?
Can you please repeat that question?
Yeah, of course. Is there one idea or mindset about AI and accounting that you wish every student and business leader understood?
Definitely use AI, but use AI responsibly.
Use AI responsibly. This has been an incredibly insightful conversation. Thank you, Dr. Mohapatra. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, your expertise. This conversation, of course, really highlights how AI is transforming accounting education practices. It's amplifying human judgment. It's working with it in financial decision making. But in terms of things like bias, of course, it's requiring us to think critically about a lot of these transparency ethics and of course the skills that your students and students around the world need for the future. Is there one more thing you would like to share with us before we start wrapping up our conversation?
I would encourage students to consider accounting in the AI age. It is an exciting period that we are going through, and I think you will find it a fascinating journey in your career if you take it up as a career in your.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Amplified. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share, and join us as we continue exploring how technology can amplify human potential. If you want to reach out, please email me at ishaantmajumdar.com. ishantmajumdar at gmail.com for any future episodes or if you yourself want to be on an episode. Thank you so much, Dr. Mohapatra.
Thank you very much for having me.